Okay, the second segment, we're going to start off the discussion with paragliding landings. So stay tuned. We're going to be right back talking more paragliding on World Talk Radio. Welcome back. We'll be right back. David Jebb. I'm talking paragliding to our worldwide friends and audience, and really thankful to have you aboard and listening to the program. Really want to encourage you to spread the word and let some of the other pilots worldwide know about the program. And by the way, you know, we met a lot of the European pilots in Germany this past couple of weeks when I was back there at Free Flight 2004, and I was really surprised how many people, even in the German-speaking country of Germany, know about the show. Many of them have listened to the show, but many of them at least knew about the show, and it was kind of surprising. It was kind of real happy to find that out, and delighted, actually. So anyway, I started to talk about landing approaches and why landing approaches are so important. We started off earlier in the last segment talking about stalls, and coming in on landing approaches when oftentimes we find people having accidents. In fact, statistically, they're saying here in the United States, and I'm sure it's not too far-fetched to say throughout most of the paragliding world, about 30% of all paragliding accidents occur at landing. What would you say about that, Murray? Would you say that's about accurate in terms of what you know?
I'd probably say that about 2/3 of the accidents I've seen have been botched takeoffs, and easily 1/3 of the accidents are landings. Yeah,
that's
relatively few in the air, but botched takeoffs, which effectively are the same as landings, really, or landings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's windy Scotland for you, or England actually.
Right. Well, what we find out, there's certain common threads that run through most of these accidental landings that occur. A lot of it, maybe just to start off with, has to do with paying attention, keeping your eyes open. We see people sometimes coming in and landing and having mid-air collisions, not watching, people setting up in multiple entry points, coming in at the same LZ, the same time, same altitude, and bam, you have a collision. So these are one of the contributing factors to landing accidents. And of course, the other one that we started off talking earlier in the last segment was stalling. Unbelievable amount of pilots come in and stall the wing close to the ground and end up falling to the ground, getting hurt. So we could talk probably about these two areas alone in terms of how to minimize accidents.
The first one, the stall one, we tend to sort of divide it down into a runway. What you should be aiming to do is touch down beyond the numbers, 1/3 of the way into the runway. If you're doing your approach and you're setting up that way, if you, say, get more of a headwind or you get less lift or whatever, it still gives you that 1/3 behind your touchdown point, which is a safe landing. And it still gives you the 2/3 you can carry on, which avoids the fixation of trying to get to a point, slowing down, and as you say, stalling or spinning.
Right. When I talked about people coming in to land, the viewing aspect is quite important. What tends to happen too oftentimes that a pilot on landing approach will object fixate on one thing, and that's where I'm going. And in so doing, they cut off most of their vision of the periphery around them, and this is when you start looking at people coming into near mid-airs or setting up and landing in an area where there might be rotor, a lot more turbulence or dust devils. So again, the visual part of the landing becomes all-inclusive. I try to tell people, look, when you're coming in, you should be like a computer scanning a whole 180 degrees. I mean, you've already looked around you 360 degrees, and when you start to set up for your landing approach, at least you have a field of vision 180 degree wide or wider. And use your eyes roving back and forth, just like a computer scanner, going back and forth, but yet focusing on where it is that you want to set up. These things often can change. For instance, the other thing that becomes quite important in setting up for a landing approach is having alternatives. In other words, I can think of more than one time where I'm setting up to land in a certain area, and all of a sudden a hang glider dived down below me, and now he's in the final flight path, and I have to alternate my flight plan immediately. Otherwise, I'll be on them or in the same landing area. So, when you come in to set up for a landing, you've got a lot of things going on. You're looking at wind direction. You're trying to find a windsock. If you don't have a windsock, you're trying to find some telltale sign of which way the winds are coming in. You're setting up for a landing point, so you've got an obstacle down there or an area that you're looking to land in. You're also trying to scan the area, looking for any other situations that might immediately develop, like somebody landing in front of you or somebody pulling up their glider, which all too often happens is you're on final approach and somebody's down in the LZ and pulls up their glider at the last second, and you're either going to go through the lines or you're going to divert and try to miss. So all of these things become real important when you're setting up for your final approach.
One of the side issues there, of course, is what Torrey does is an excellent idea, which we are eventually going to get around to putting onto our gliders, and that's the whistle. So that anybody's pulling up and they've heard a whistle for somebody coming into approach for landing, they should be able to hear the whistle, whereas you won't necessarily pick up on the shout. And same as on takeoff, that type of procedure where you have a busy site is clearly a big benefit.
You got it. Now, one of the other techniques that I like to encourage most of our people when they're training on landing approach, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, I started to get into it, and that is the speed is your friend. And the reason I suggest that is that oftentimes if people are real heavy into the brakes, that's where they can kind of get in trouble. A gust come up or something, and all of a sudden they're deep stalled. So speed is an important factor. When I have people coming in and I see that they're going to overshoot their intended target, I talk to them about working into steep or moderate banking turns, S-turns, and S-turns where you can either go backward or forward, but keep your speed up. So if you use a lot of body roll in these turns, you don't have to use as much brake. Therefore, you can keep the energy in the wing high. And, of course, with faster speed, you get a much more dramatic effect when you finally do flare close to the ground. Yep. And on the other hand, if you find out that you're going to be a little bit short of your target, but you still have a lot of speed in the wing, oftentimes you can go that extra distance without, dropping straight down to reach your intended target. So speed becomes a real important issue, and if you keep the speed up, you don't have to keep the brakes down.
Yeah, altitude and airspeed. And good morning, Gabe.
How you doing, Murray?
Yep, one of the things that we do on the initial training is actually to avoid landing on the landing approach. So to save the effort on the leg when somebody's starting, particularly with the dual control tandem, we'll do a lot of low approach and go arounds. That tends to help, particularly for top landing type sites, the fixation on having to land. You do a low approach, you go around. It gives you the judgment. It saves your energy. You're not having to walk back up. You fly in, you come in, you do another approach, you reset your approach further back, you come down and you touch and go. And you do maybe 2 or 3 of those, and then you come in and you do your actual landing. Now, clearly, you obviously have to take care of how busy the site is. You're not getting in other folks' way. But it avoids, from the day one type training, building up that fixation of, if I'm approaching to land, I have to land, which is not true for most flights. Unless you're bottom landing, you usually have the option. You can actually abort and go around. You're not fixating on it. Somebody pulls up, no problem. You have that alternative route to get back out to lift, to work it up. Hang glider dives in below you. You have that alternative to get out, fly, come back round and land again. You're not fixated.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think if you're going to be coming in for landing, you can do a lot of weight shifting until you get closer to the ground, but then you probably want to not give so much weight shift, because when you roll the glider, then your body's actually accelerating. And just because you were talking about it earlier, right, that I'm thinking that it's better to do that when you're up high, but as
right,
you're getting down lower, you get less and less, and probably give some outside brake after each turn, just so you stop the
weight shift itself not the problem, but the problem is we tend to find that early day pilots, and sometimes you see folks that have been flying a few years that still do that. They can weight shift into a turn coming into landing, but the problem is when they start getting close and they're seeing the ground in front of them rather than being below, they then start putting on brakes, and they usually don't put brakes on with the correct timing, so you actually can build up pilot oscillation, and that, combined with the weight shift, can then swing them into the ground like a lockout on a tow launch. But certainly once we start adding in the brakes to steepen the turn, that's where you can build up a lot of energy.
Another thing that does happen frequently with newer pilots, when they're coming in for a landing approach and they're coming in fast, which we encourage them to come in fast. Oftentimes when they come in fast and low, they're trying to turn into the wind, and as they get close to the ground, they unintentionally start to make, say, for instance, a right hook turn into the wind. The left hand comes down at the same time, and the turn becomes muted. And so they end up landing crosswind and not fully into the wind. So that's something that would help people realize that when you're coming in like that, you have to stay focused on, the dynamics of turning the wing around and getting, as smooth and as flat a turn as possible, but not muting it by pulling down both brakes and end up landing slightly downwind or slightly crosswind instead of into the wind.
A common problem we see with that is, say they were coming in and they were doing a left turn to turn round into wind. When they pull down on the right brake, as you correctly said there, the wing ends up when their feet is on the ground, the wing ends up actually being rolled to the right, and you see them getting dragged along the side of a hill. Whereas what you ideally want, if you're having to do that reasonably tight turn round into wind, you actually want to end up with still a bit of left roll. So to centre the wing overhead, once you've touched down, you actually step left 2 or 3 steps, rolling the wing up. And that way it's pulling you back in rather than dragging you along. And then at that point you can safely drop the wing down, but not being dragged along the side of the hill. You see a lot of that in Scotland.
I was also going to say something that I see a lot of pilots doing is, especially the newer pilots, is when they're getting out of their harness, like 10, 15, 20 feet up, a lot of them will use the brakes to kind of give them support, give them leverage to get out of the harness. And what happens is they go from having no brake whatsoever to maybe pulling down half brakes, and all of a sudden they get that extra lift, and then they get a little nervous because, oh God, I'm going to overshoot. Let their hands straight back up, and then they have a big surge into the ground. I think I think just about every pilot habitually will do something like that unless they're trained not to.
Again, the key is not using your arms, but using the muscles which control at the hips. So if you want to get upright in the harness, all you do is you straighten your body, and your weight shifts forward, you rotate, your legs are down below you, and you've got your legs ready. But most people are too used to getting out of chairs, pressing on the arms, rather than straightening at the hips and shifting their weight.
That's a good point, Gabriel, about standing up in the harness too. We oftentimes will try to insist on people and instill in them the habit of coming in feet down and slightly leaning forward, so that they touch down on their toes and not on their butt. And the added benefit is that if you do stall and you're sitting down in your harness with your feet up in the air, when you do stall, you tend to fall back on your back, whereas if you are standing upright, leaning forward, you may still land on your back, but you may end up landing on your feet, and that's the end result will be a big difference in terms of how you end up in the end, either hurt or slightly uncomfortable or whatever. If you land on your feet, you're much better off. Also, the added benefit of coming in standing up is when you're trying to hit your target, now you've created a little bit more drag, a little bit more wind resistance, and so it makes it a little bit easier to slow the glider down just using the natural forces of your body stopping wind flow. That will bring you down easier too. So there's some benefit there as well.
What should we go over next?
Well, I had a couple things that I saw. I wanted to comment on the new website that I just saw you looking at a minute ago. Maybe you can throw that thing back up again. Murray, is that online now? Murray, if you haven't had a chance, you need to go to our website at www.flytory.com.
It's not at Flytory. It's on a different.
Is it the dev site?
Yeah, it's right-flight.com.
Oh, okay. There you go. The new website for Torrey.
You want to just hunt it through an MSN? Like, cut the link across.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, that's absolutely stunning.
It's like halfway up there, but it should be up by the end of the week or the week after. So
yeah, very, very nice. Let's repeat that one more time. www.right-flight.com. And if you haven't had a chance to go to that, look at the new Torrey Pines website. It's pretty stunning. And let me just kind of go over some of the numbers here. In 2001 and 2002, this is kind of a commercial for Torrey Pines Gladport that is on the website, but it says that we trained, let's see, 10% of the total 2001 U.S. certifications were issued from the Torrey Pines Gladport. In 2002, 12% of the total U.S. Certifications were issued from the Gladport. 46% of 2001's California state certifications and 53% of 2002 state certifications were issued from the Torrey Pines Gladport. Torrey Pines Gladport employs 3 master-rated instructors, 4 advanced-rated instructors. They also issued instructor and tandem rating certification, and in 2003, the USH State Instructor of the Year was Gabe, who is currently in charge of the school and the curriculum. So, looks pretty impressive.
Do we know this guy, Gabriel?
Yeah, I've heard that name before, but I can't place it.
Rings a bell.
Must be the guy sitting next to me.
Yeah, that's always late to the show.
Yeah. So, hey, that is good. Again, let me just repeat, if you haven't seen some of this stuff that's on the new website, flight.com. And some really nice stuff there. Okay. A couple things that I saw being discussed on one of the chat rooms was about carabiners. When are they too old and when are they worn out? And I don't know, Murray, if you've had any experience with that.
Well, I just replace mine on a nice and regular basis, but mine gets an awful lot of use.
Well, I figured if anybody is abusive to their carabiners, it'd have to be you.
Hey, that's just my heart getting used. I was having a great time today at Victoria Park. Nipped out there. Conditions were really quite punchy and all the rest of it. And I had quite an audience, folks stopping and watching. So I'm putting my old hand out skimming the grass because they've just cut the grass again. And it's so much fun. When the grass is cut there, you come down fast. You maybe have a wee bit of a tailwind. So you're sort of doing about 30 miles an hour, you're about 2 inches above the ground, and you've just got your fingers spread, and there's this massive spray of cut grass coming behind you. Zoom right, back up, work the left.
So a rooster tail of grass being spewed in the air behind you, huh?
It's just so much fun, and then fly out and work the seawall, which is about 10 foot high. And then when you get a good bit of lift off the seawall, you jump back to the ridge. It's just, I mean, that much fun shouldn't be legal.
Well, I can't wait to come out there and see some of this stuff because I'm sure it's beautiful too.
Well, the video clips, we got very, very lucky. We were tight on the deadline for the 16th for the article for Paraglider magazine. And on the Friday, I got the break in the weather, so I was able to get out there and both filming with the helmet cam, and we've just made up a mount to allow me to mount my 35mm camera on the helmet. So I got some stills of that, and it was downwind landing. And that was just so much fun. And out of, I think I did about 15 flights that I filmed, and there was only one where it ended up flat on my face on the nose. But when you consider you're approaching a grass bank, which is maybe 25 degrees upslope, with a tailwind, to land on a spot landing, falling over, and it was just falling over, it wasn't a crash. I mean, I stopped and I just sort of tripped over my own feet and ended up nose down on the ground, but I still had the glider spun round nicely, lying into wind, upslope, in front of me, and just killing ourselves laughing. I was just having a great time. The things we do for the magazine.
That's awesome.
So this summer the plan is to get the wetsuits on, and we're getting in touch with RNLI, because one of their lads was quite interested in the paragliding, and hopefully what we'll do is we'll take about half a dozen gliders there, because they're going to get awfully wet, and fly out from the ridge, out over the water, and then do some water landings, and the plan is to maybe get the waterproof video camera, so film it from the pilot's perspective as well as pictures from the shore, and sort of just do a whole day just doing water landings for safety stuff. But got to have fun in life.
Water landing's kind of hard on gliders, that's for sure.
Yeah, particularly salt water.
Yeah. Well, it must be hard on bodies. It's got to be cold in Scotland.
Nah, it's not that bad.
What's the water temperature?
No idea, but I used to go out surfing in the middle of winter, wearing a summer wetsuit.
Well, here the water's about 62 degrees, and that's plenty cold.
6 degrees maybe here.
Oh my God.
Mind you, of course, that's 6 degrees centigrade. So that's
Right.
what, 30, like 38 or something?
Yeah, that's
That's a guess.
that's absolutely near freezing. That's
It's
you have
ridiculous.
that. Yeah.
When you get too cold surfing, all we used to do was go ashore, do 300 sit-ups without a break. And that warms you up, and then go back out for another half an hour surfing.
We used to pile firewood on the beach and light a big fire and stand there for about an hour until you stop shivering and then go right back out again. So I guess the same thing, except that was a lazy way to do it. Well, hey, you know what? It looks like we are up for another break. So let's...
topic following this one?
Yeah, well, we were going to talk a little bit about tired wings and tired carabiners and tired things. So if you want
to know about tired wings?
if you want to stay with us, you're welcome to. We'll be right back. This is David, Gabriel, and Murray talking paragliding World Talk Radio. We'll be back after this intermission.